I'd like to show you an interactive generative poem that I wrote called The Pen. You're looking at it. And you can conceptualize it, this virtual software pen, as having 4 nibs, and each nib draws an animation. In this case, the animations are of the word time, or the word emit, because of course that has the same letters. And the nibs are attached to the pen with very loose springs so loose that they're almost shot, like the springs are almost gone in terms of their workability. They're just so long and shot that it's a very strange pen. So you can click and drag to move the pen around, and so consequently the nibs move as well when you move the pen around. But the springs are so loosely attached to the pen that it doesn't move reliably at all. It's like, is it really moving when I click and drag the mouse? Yeah, well, it's a recalcitrant virtual software pen. I programmed it so that, as you can see, as it draws, it actually overwrites the toolbar down here. So I thought that would be a mark of it having its own personality. It even overwrites the toolbar. If so, the personality that it has is annoying, because this is annoying when it does this. You can mouse over the toolbar to erase its writings over the toolbar, but yeah, is what it is. So we have time emitting or something. We have the architecture of time. We have time passing time. We have a visual poem of time or emit, or both. Actually, there are 3 poems in this piece, not just time. We see the title right here. There's another one that we'll look at called Nialogue, and yet another one called but let's go back to time for the time being, and have a look at the interactivity here besides just clicking and dragging on the stage to change the location of the pen and its nibs. So if you click here, you can change the nib opacity. You can change all of the nibs at once, or you can change the individual opacity. If I bring down the opacity, you can see that, yeah, it's looking a little less completely opaque. And if I bring it down, really bring it down, then, we see a kind of a ghostly time, a time that is a ghost of its former self. So, yeah, mostly I prefer this one to be fully opaque. I prefer a fully opaque time. So anyway, that's that poem. Let's go on to the next one. It's called Nialogue. Now this one, I'm going to change the opacity to be much less than fully opaque. I like this one to be a lot less opaque. How about like that? Yeah, it's got a nicer feel to it. How about even less? How about like 14% opaque? Yeah. So you see it's slightly smoky at that point. Let's bring it down even more. Yeah, actually it's probably better here. Then this OK button takes you back to the main controls. This button erases the screen. This button lets you change the nib size. All the nibs are at 99, which is the max right now. This button lets you change the inks and color. What does that do? Well, change this. See that we get something a little different. Yeah. And then this lets you change the speed and rhythm of it, the frames per second. But that's basically, and then you can click this to get rid of the controls altogether. But let's change to the last palm, which is called O, animations of the letter O. Click and drag to change the location of those nibs. Oh, darn nibs. Let's increase, see what it looks like with greater opacity. That's what it looks like with full opacity. It doesn't look as interesting with full opacity. If you mouse over, if you're curious about what a particular control does, if you mouse over the control, you get a little bit of help. You can see a little bit of language on the toolbar that tells you what's going on. There's also on the web a slideshow of screenshots from this piece. Let's have a look at some of those. You can change via the options the display time. This is the number of milliseconds each image is displayed. And this is the number of milliseconds each image takes to fade in and out. Well, let's speed that up a little bit. Let's change that to 500 milliseconds or a half a second. And let's change this to 1000. So yeah, I took these screenshots of the piece in action. Anyway, I'm going to be distributing this as a program for Windows and Mac, as an executable for Windows and Mac. Formerly, it displayed on the web in Shockwave, but of course, Shockwave is no longer working in just about all the browsers, so it's time now for me to distribute this interactive work as an executable that will run on desktop machines, not in the browser, but as an independent program. Thanks for having a look.